Sitting alone in the darkness of the night, you are startled by the unexpected sound of a bell. When you open the door, you are confronted with a scene that surprises you. This story, which normally starts like an ordinary food delivery, takes an unexpected turn and draws you in. This story, with its dark mystery and deep chills, completely changes an ordinary night. As you pick up your food, the straying movements of the courier looking into your ease, and the mysterious note he leaves you are filled with an inner chill. Now is the time to step into this dark path to solve this mystery and find out the truth. But remember, this journey may lead you not only to a dark world, but also to your own fears. So, are you ready? Because the truth is waiting for you behind this door. Mark returned home late after a long day. When he left work, he was exhausted and hungry. When he opened the door, a cold wind blew in from outside and darkness filled the room. Already on edge, Mark quickly shuddered as he entered. He took a few steps into the living room. He immediately sat down and took out his cell phone. She opened the online food ordering app. As she scrolled through the menu, her eyes quickly closed from exhaustion. But eventually he chose a dish from a restaurant he liked and placed his order. After completing his order, his eyes began to close again from fatigue. Just then, a notification appeared on his screen. When she clicked on the notification, she saw that her order was on its way with a short note. "We have a special surprise. Enjoy." However, Mark didn't pay much attention to the note and closed his eyes and relaxed on the couch. After a while, he heard a knock at the door. Mark, his eyes still half open, moved towards the door. When he opened the door, he saw the courier standing quietly outside. The courier quietly handed him the package and wished Mark a good evening with a smile. Mark took the package and hurried inside. Before he took the food out of the package, he noticed a small note on it. It was written on a red piece of paper. "If you are curious, open the box." Mark hesitated for a moment when he saw this note. But then, thinking it was just a joke, he decided to open the package. Instead of the food he was expecting, the package contained a small video player and an envelope. Mark picked up the video player in surprise and began to examine the envelope. The envelope contained a note with just a few words. "We've prepared something special for you. Have a good time." Curious, Mark turned on the video player. The screen showed a woman tied to a chair in a dark room. Her eyes were filled with panic and her mouth was taped shut. Mark's heart skipped a beat. A small note appeared on the table next to the woman. Mark began to read the note, his hands shaking. The note said, "This may be your last supper. Have a good appetite." As Mark recoiled in horror, the video player suddenly turned off and plunged into darkness. At that moment, there was a faint click behind the door and Mark's heart began to race. The door opened slowly, and the person who entered was a sight Mark could not have imagined. It was a smiling man with a knife in his hand, madness shining in his eyes. With a scream of horror, Mark realized that the nightmare in the dark room was only the beginning. After moments of fear, Mark came to himself for a moment, struggling with his own confused emotions. With the last ounce of energy he could muster, rather than screaming, he came to his senses and thought about what to do. The person in front of him was approaching step by step, smiling with a knife. Mark quickly began to look for an escape route, but realized that there was no other exit door in the room. He took a deep breath and prepared to do whatever it took to defend himself. However, just as he was preparing to attack, there was a knock on the door. Turning quickly with the knife, the man looked towards the door and stepped back in surprise. The door had been broken down by the police and a team had entered. Quickly realizing the chaos and danger inside, the police moved quickly to rescue Mark. With the arrival of the police, Mark thought that the moments of fear were over. Just then, however, he noticed a strange expression on the face of the smiling man with the knife. With a dark laugh, the man stepped back and disappeared. The policemen quickly searched around the room, but the man was never seen again. After her rescue, Mark prepared to leave the scene. However, when he was alone in the room for a moment, he heard a voice behind the door. The door opened slightly to reveal the eyes of the man who had mysteriously returned. This time, he had a look of vengeance on his face, and the knife in his hand was aimed at Mark. After the incident, the police searched for a long time for the fate of the mystery man and Mark, but found no trace of him. Mark's disappearance added to the mystery of the horrific event, and there was much speculation. However, neither Mark nor the mystery man ever reappeared, and this horrific event remains a legend.
Midnight Surprise.
David was a young American working at a software startup. He had only moved to Berlin a few months before, and he still struggled to speak German. He made a habit of working late into the night because the launch of his new project was coming up. One night, while working on his projects, he realized that the clock was ticking more than one. When his stomach growled, David rummaged through the small fridge in his office, but all he could find were a few stale biscuits. Deciding he needed something more substantial, he grabbed his phone and opened a local food delivery app. After scrolling through a few restaurants with English descriptions, he saw "Midnight Surprise, free dessert with first order," caught his attention. Instinctively, she chose this offer and placed her order. About half an hour later, the doorbell rang outside the building where his office was located. David went to the door to get his lunch. When he opened the door, he found an unexpected sight. The courier was looking at him with a pale face and eyes that glowed in the dark. Instead of words, he handed him a box with a note and the food. When David came in with the food, he was eager to open the box. But to his surprise, there was no food inside, just a mysterious note. "We have a little surprise to sweeten your evening." The note also said, "We have a guest with you, be careful." And there was a small drawing next to it. David found this strange and looked around carefully. The silence in the office was suddenly broken by a strange rustling sound. For a moment, he looked out of the window but saw no one. Then, when he looked at the paper again, the drawing on the note seemed to have changed. There was now a more distinct shadow. At that moment, light footsteps were heard coming down the corridor of the office. David quickly locked his door and headed for the back exit. A few minutes later, he managed to reach the police and gave them information about the courier. However, when the police arrived, there was no trace of the courier. David couldn't forget that night, and after that, he avoided ordering takeout food on his lonely nights in Berlin. Because the experience had shown him that in a foreign country, he could face unexpected dangers.
Warning from the Mysterious Courier.
A man living alone was tired and hungry when he returned home late at night. He decided to order something for dinner. He grabbed his phone, opened his favorite food delivery app, and quickly ordered a pizza. He saw that the delivery should arrive in 30 minutes, so he waited patiently. After a while, the bell rang and the man opened the door. But the courier waiting behind the door was a strange sight. He was dressed in dirty and torn clothes, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were visibly panicked. "Did you order?" the courier asked in a trembling voice. The man shook his head in amazement and paid for the pizza. But the courier was still standing there, looking as if he was hesitating to say anything. "Anyway, thank you," he said, wanting to close the door quickly. "Please don't go home," the courier whispered in a last-ditch effort. The man was confused and could not understand what the courier meant. He quickly closed the door and left the pizza on the kitchen counter. However, he instinctively left the door unlocked. He sat down at the dining table and started cutting the pizza. When he took the first bite, he felt a strange taste. The pizza was not normal. It tasted bad, even bitter. However, overcome by hunger, he took a few more bites. Suddenly, a strange noise was heard from the window. The man turned toward the window in alarm and saw a figure in the darkness moving quickly away. It was the courier. In horror, as the man picked up his cell phone and prepared to call the police, he stared at the pizza for a moment. Then, to his horror, he realized that there were human teeth marks on the pizza slices. The courier's warning now made sense. Returning home probably implied that there was danger. What the courier really wanted to get rid of was not to feed him this disgusting pizza, but to protect him. When the man called the police to report the situation, they discovered that the courier had a number of food delivery addresses on the way, and that many of the residents had disappeared. However, the courier was never traced again. From that day on, instead of living alone, Adam moved to a safe apartment and decided to be careful at all times. He could not forget that frightening night and remembered the face of the courier who said in a trembling voice, "Don't come home," every time a food delivery arrived. And here are 3 of the creepiest stories that can happen during food delivery. The horror stories in this video can turn an ordinary day into a nightmare. Remember, sometimes even the most seemingly innocent situations can have unexpected consequences. If you have had a similar scary experience, please share it with us in the comments section. If you liked our video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content. Always be vigilant and check who is knocking at your door. See you in the next video. Stay safe.